There's lots of what I refer to as eerie diction in this song. Talk about emo vibes. This relationship slowly disintegrated into like pixels or specks of dust. I hope that he's wearing comfy shoes. I view the word debt here as being suggestive of a very mysterious sort of guilt. Hi everyone, welcome to this video. As the title suggests, we're going to be analyzing the song The Night We Met by Lord Huron. If you're new here, I analyze song lyrics very in depth through the lens of literary analysis. Here's a list of literary terms I may refer to throughout this video, and as a reminder, everything I state is just my own personal opinion. Music is very subjective, and I always love hearing what you think down below in the comments. This song title is referring to a very specific moment in time. This suggests to me that the night in question here holds a lot of significance for our protagonist. It could be for a positive reason or for a not so positive reason. We will explore that more as we get into the song. This song title also lets me know that whatever the contents of this song are about, they're going to be from the perspective of a protagonist who is reminiscing about something. They're looking back. Verse 1. We can think about a traveler both in a positive way and in a negative way. A positive way to think about a traveler is to think about someone who's very cultured. They are traveling the world, having a lot of new experiences. They're someone who has a rich life, and that can be very exciting. On the other hand, a traveler can be someone who doesn't have a home. They have no home base. They're going from one place to another because they don't know where they want to go. They're kind of like drifting from place to place. The more negative interpretation of traveler is the one that I'm more partial towards within the context of this song specifically. To me, a traveler within this song is referring to someone who is stuck in a space in between. They're in a sort of purgatory. Perhaps it's more of an emotional purgatory. They don't have a place. There is something unsettled within them, and I think that is what's being referred to with the word traveler. I talked a little bit more about existing in an emotional purgatory when I analyzed the song Ride by Lana Del Rey and Right Where You Left Me by Taylor Swift. I will link those down below. Especially in the song Ride, I talked about how when you're going from place to place, there is a feeling of unsettledness that comes with that because you're existing in a state that you're not meant to be in for long. It's kind of like an airport. An airport is chill if you're there for a few hours, but if you have to stay at an airport for a very long extended period of time, it starts to feel weird. Time moves differently. Your perception of the world shifts. You may take on characteristics of the weird place that you're stuck in. This kind of reminds me of liminal spaces. I've discussed this before on my channel. A liminal space is a space that is familiar to you, but it's existing in a kind of weird context. For example, it can be referring to like a school classroom during the summertime, or a gas station that's completely empty, or like a closed down Chuck E. Cheese. I first heard about liminal spaces via a Twitter account, so I will link all of that below if you're interested. I think that metaphorically, if someone exists in these sort of liminal spaces or is traveling within a sort of purgatory, it can be very dangerous because it's easy for them to lose their sense of self and to gain the characteristics of the purgatory that they're in. Their perception of time and space can become skewed, and that can have very disastrous effects. And I do want to say that usually I interpret movement as positive. To travel is to move, and if you're moving, it's a lively energy, then that's positive. Because the opposite of that would be to be stagnant in life, and to me, being stagnant is not really living in a metaphorical sense. However, here I am viewing the movement as being a little more somber just due to the context of the whole song. The traveler here could be moving geographically from place to place. Again, they may not have a physical home base, or this could be more of a metaphorical sort of traveling, a traveling of an internal journey through your emotions, through your trauma, through your memories. Lots of different iterations of that can exist. And I also think about whether this traveler is choosing to travel themselves because they want to, or are they forced to travel due to their circumstances. I also want to mention that not all travel destinations are positive. I personally am more inclined to think that this protagonist is traveling in an internal manner. Lots of beautiful internal destinations exist. Lots of beautiful emotions and mindset and psychological spaces exist, but a lot of very dark and somber and heavy destinations exist as well. So it's interesting to think about what sort of destination this traveler is stopping at. The protagonist is saying they're not the only traveler who has not repaid his debt. The word debt has a negative connotation. I personally don't think this is referring to this traveler's old credit card bills. I don't think this is a monetary sort of debt. I view the word debt here as being suggestive of a very mysterious sort of guilt. I think the protagonist feels guilty for either something they did directly or something they had a hand in. They feel guilty about the outcome. It's something that weighs heavily on them. It's probably something that they're traveling with, you know, on their back. They have some baggage. This also reminds me of a phrase that you hear in fairy tales, or I don't even know if it's in fairy tales, but it's in Once Upon a Time. Hashtag Captain Guyliner. Everything comes at a price. Sometimes that price could be your dignity. It could be a shift in how you view yourself, or sometimes that price can affect other people and hurt people outside of yourself. So perhaps this protagonist feels like they did something and now they have to pay for it in a way, and they're paying for it by like suffering or feeling lost. It's interesting that it says the protagonist is not the only traveler who has not made these sorts of amends. He's kind of part of a group in a way, which is interesting. I've been searching for a trail to follow. Again, take me back to the night we met. The word trail suggests to me that this traveler is traveling on foot, which takes a long time. I hope that he's wearing comfy shoes. The word again is important to me because this suggests that the protagonist has lost his way before, so he's trying to get back on track. We can think about why the protagonist lost his way. Maybe it was due to an external event, maybe it was due to an internal shift. Within the context of this song, I am inclined to think about a romantic relationship. Perhaps a romantic relationship caused the protagonist to come into this place of lostness. Take me back to the night we met. There's different ways to interpret that lyric. And listen, I have read through these lyrics multiple times. I've listened to the song multiple times over an extended period of time. So I'm familiar with this song. When I hear Take Me Back to the Night We Met in the first verse, to me, it's like the protagonist is, in that instance, saying, take me back to the night when this seed was planted. Take me back to the night when this all began. I think sometimes in life, you can kind of pinpoint when a new era of yours started. Sometimes your era can be positive. Sometimes it can be a little bit not chill. This is definitely a not chill era for this protagonist, but sometimes we can kind of pinpoint when it started. Maybe it was when you met someone. Maybe it was when you broke up with someone. Maybe it was when you graduated from school. You know, we as humans tend to categorize different chapters of our lives in relation to things that happened to us. And I think for this protagonist, the night he met this person was very significant. It was a catalyst for a series of events in their life, and those series of events led the protagonist to being metaphorically lost looking for a trail. I would personally argue that the protagonist was not lost before they met this person, or at least not to the severity that they are lost now. Verse 2. I definitely sense some regret in verse 2. You know, hindsight is 20/20. The term "what the hell" to me connotes a feeling of frustration. Ride along, in my opinion, brings forth a transportation metaphor. We talk about transportation metaphors and car metaphors a lot on my channel, sometimes with Taylor Swift lyrics, very, very often with Lana Del Rey lyrics. You can think about it more literal if you want. Maybe the protagonists met their love interest and they ended up in the same car together. For me, this is a more metaphorical journey on a metaphorical road through a romantic relationship. When the protagonists met their love interest, they decided to ride along with them. So they were two independent people, and the night that he met this person, they decided to ride along together. It was like a fateful night. When you're riding along with a person, the fact that they're in the car with you can affect the destinations you end up at. They can affect how easily you drive. They can affect how long it takes you to get to where you need to go. They can also change the radio station, which could be good or bad. I don't know what this love interest playlist look like, but you're on a journey together. And oftentimes, if there's another person in the car, your entire destination can shift very, very slowly without you realizing it. And that can cause you to become lost. And I'm not saying that the other person in this car was like a bad person. I'm not saying they had like ill intent. Another way to think about it is in the term of distractions. When someone comes into your life and they join your journey, they can either complement your life in a very beautiful, synergistic way, or they can unintentionally lead you off the track that is the most beneficial for you. Of course. I interrupt this video with a very special message from myself. This is sponsored by me. I want to let you guys know that I'm offering services on the website Fiverr. I'm offering a few different things. videos, I can help you refine your own analysis skills to develop your own unique perspective about poetry, about song lyrics, about any written work. I've also been getting a lot of messages from you guys letting me know that you use my videos to help you learn English. So if you need an English conversation partner, I'm your girl. We can converse through the internet. I can help you with pronunciation, sentence structure, and random things about American culture that are not super intuitive. If you're a songwriter or a poet and want me to read your original piece of work and provide you with a very detail-oriented feedback, I can do that as well. All that information is going to be linked down below. If you have any questions about any of the services I'm offering, please message me directly through the website Fiverr. Back to the video that you actually clicked here for. The first two lines of the chorus are so beautiful and so heartbreaking. It says, I had all and then most of you, some and now none of you. Talk about emo vibes. Let's break this down. The word had is past tense. This protagonist had all of this other person in the past. It's no longer true for them. Now, what does it mean if you have all of another person? Again, there's lots of different iterations of this. For me, it means that you had access to all of this person. For you to have access to someone, they have to grant it to you, at least in my opinion. If someone is granting you all of this access to them, to their internal world, to their emotions, to their heart, it means that you're currently in alignment with one another. They trust you. You're in a good place. And we have a decrease in the amount. I had all and then most of you. So it's like going from 100% to like an 85%. Still like a B+. Some and now none of you. It's like a gradual decrease in the closeness the protagonist felt with the other person. Perhaps the closeness that the other person was granting them as well. It's of course a two-way street. They floated apart from one another. It wasn't an abrupt change. It was something that happened over the course of time, very gradually, which is very heartbreaking to think about. For me, when it says take me back to the night we met in the chorus, it has a different connotation and meaning when I compare it to verse 1. Here, it has a more emotional connotation. Perhaps the protagonist feels overwhelmed now that they're thinking this lyric, and I do think they're thinking all of this in their mind. It's just like internal monologue, introspection, etc. Because the two lines before are very emotional, and to me, it makes me view someone who's reminiscing. So the protagonist was reminiscing at the beginning of the chorus, revisiting some memories maybe, and now he wants to go back to the night we met, perhaps because he misses this person. It sounds like the protagonist did become lost as a result of this relationship. However, I think the protagonist had very intense feelings for this person, and in the chorus, I think they want to go back to that night, not to talk themselves out of riding along with this person, but so they can perhaps just revisit the memory. They can see their love interest for the first time again. They can perhaps enjoy the meet cute they had. I think now the emotion is a little bit softer and there's not as much regret, but there's a sense of not nostalgia, but like nostalgia. I can't think of like the appropriate word I want to use. It's wistful. It's a little bit melancholy. It's not regret that they started like a relationship or a situationship with this person. It's perhaps regret that the way things panned out took them apart from one another. That's the way I feel about the lyric here. And I always find repeated lyrics very interesting because I think they can often have different connotations depending on the immediate context they're placed in. And I'm also aware this is a song title, so it hits different. Then it says, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. The protagonist says he's haunted by the ghost of their former love interest. To me, the first two lines of the chorus make me feel like this relationship slowly disintegrated into like pixels or specks of dust, but in like an ethereal way. And I say that due to the instrumentals of the song and Lord Huron's voice as well. I don't normally comment on that. I stick straight to the lyrics, but those sorts of things always have a very big effect on how the listener can interpret the song. So the protagonist here is haunted by a ghost. You can interpret this as like a literal ghost. Maybe this former love interest passed away and maybe they're full of regret and they have a debt to pay because maybe the reason they passed away had to do with the love interest. You can interpret this in that way if you want. For me though, I'm more inclined to interpret this metaphorically. Let's define what a ghost is. So a ghost is a spirit that has not moved on to the other realm. It's lingering. The word haunted here has a negative connotation. It's eerie, it can be scary, and it can be frustrating if you're haunted by like memories. To me, it also brings forth a feeling of entrapment. And I say that because I'm interpreting this as a protagonist being haunted by the memories of their former love. I think they feel trapped because if they're haunted by the memories, they can't escape it. Because where are your memories located? They're in your mind, right? What I'm about to say is what I said in my ride analysis. To me, this makes me think of a more emo interpretation of the popular saying, wherever you go, there you are. It's very hard to escape from yourself. So the protagonist here has not been able to move on from that relationship ending. They're haunted by the ghost of this former love. They're haunted by the memories. Going back to the definition of a ghost, oftentimes a spirit will linger because there's unfinished business. And a ghost can only exist if it's no longer living. So this relationship is dead. This relationship is no longer living. That person is no longer their partner, their significant other. They're just a person now. To me, I don't necessarily think that the ex-love here has unfinished business with the protagonist. Maybe they do, but we're not given their perspective. So like for me, I'm just gonna say like they're more chill about this. But ironically, I think the unfinished business here is with the protagonist of this song. It's a little bit ironic because the ghost would be more likely to have unfinished business in this context. When you break up with someone, it's natural to keep thinking about them. You know, it takes time to get over someone. And that, of course, can be very difficult and it can take a lot of time. However, for this protagonist, it's more than difficult. The word haunted connotes a more intense feeling. It's kind of like they need to escape this. Maybe that's what drove them to become metaphorically lost. That's definitely a possibility. Maybe it wasn't the relationship itself. Maybe the protagonist didn't become lost during the relationship, but afterwards. But whatever is going on, the protagonist is affected by this relationship ending in a way that's more intense than the norm. And I say that because of the diction here, the word ghost and the word haunted. And also because of the diction in the next verse where we have the word terrors. So let's go to the next verse, verse 3. Let's define the word terrors. It refers to extreme terror, so being in a state of intense or overwhelming fear. It can also refer to someone or something that inspires fear. All very negative emotions. The first two lines of the chorus show a progression. They are kind of chronicling the demise of the relationship. We're not given exact details about what happened. There seems to have been a fateful night when certain things happened that were very terrifying for the protagonist and their romantic partner at the time. It says that the former love interest's eyes were filled with tears. So they were crying either out of sadness or out of fear, or just due to an overflow of a lot of different emotions. So we can interpret the night of terrors when the love interest's eyes were filled with tears. We can interpret that as the night that they broke up. Or if you read the lyrics, you could argue that the night that they met was actually the night that became full of terror, or was already full of terror. Or honestly, it could have been referring to a very traumatic event that happened in the middle of the relationship, and then that kind of caused the demise of the relationship to happen. If you want to interpret this as an actual ghost, you can, like maybe something happened that night, but I am more partial to interpreting things metaphorically. So for that reason, I'm going to stick with my metaphorical interpretation, but either one is valid. You can think about the terrors as being like emotional terrors or like internal things that are scary, but the way this is stated is very intense. It makes me think that something actually happened that was traumatic to both of them. Or honestly, it could be referring to maybe a very difficult conversation they had. Maybe they were sharing very intense personal details about one another, which can be terrifying for people who've gone through trauma. There's lots of different ways we can think about this. We're not given an answer, so it's, you know, obviously open to your own interpretation. The lyric, "When you had not touched me yet," makes me really sad. Perhaps the protagonist feels guilty about them meeting because it led to a lot of intense turmoil for both of them. When it says, "when you had not touched me yet," it makes me think about a sort of purity. It's before they became romantically involved, right? He wants to get back to that purity, to that state of innocence before they actually started to be romantic with one another. Oh, take me back to the night we met. That has a different connotation for me again. Now it's not so much nostalgic, it's kind of like desperate. It's like, let's just go back to the night we met, because if I didn't meet you, then you would not have suffered the way that you did. That's how I'm thinking about it. I think the protagonist perhaps feels responsible for the suffering of their former love interest. I don't know what type of suffering that they endured, but that's how I'm interpreting it. Then we have the repetition of the chorus and then the song ends. So the very last lyric says, "Oh, take me back to the night we met." I really do enjoy how "take me back to the night we met" has a different connotation every time it's mentioned in this song, at least for me. There's lots of what I refer to as eerie diction in this song, with words like haunted, ghost, terror. And also when you listen to the song and look at the music video, there's just lots of eerie elements. I find the song to be quite emotional and quite haunting itself. We aren't given much context about the exact events that transpired within this relationship. I personally think that the protagonist maybe still even loves their former love interest, but they feel responsible and guilty for something that happened to their love interest, for some kind of trauma that they endured maybe, and that's why the protagonist now feels lost. That's why they have a debt to repay. The debt is due to causing pain to their former love interest, and this could be completely unintentional pain they caused. And I think the guilt and pressure from that situation caused them to become lost. The reason that they say that they wish they never rode along with this person was perhaps to prevent the suffering of the other person, and that would be coming from a place of love. That's all I have for the lyrics to the song. Please let me know how you interpret it. I would love to hear your take down below. Feel free to check out my services. They will be linked down below as well. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, and I'll see you next time. Bye!